you want to live in that excitable moment in life where retirement is great. Once I became financially free, retirement is great. I came down to Florida. I stayed on the beach for 3 days and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. Retirement is all of a sudden, I want to start impacting others. Tony Robbins, once again, he talks about the 6 human needs. It's growth and contribution.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to another episode of Weiss Advice. I'm your host, as always, Yonah Weiss, and with me today, I have a wonderful guest. Really looking forward to this conversation for a while. Gino Barbaro from the famous Jake and Gino. What is going on today, Gino? How you doing?
Mr. Yun, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Just literally got back from Atlanta yesterday. I was there for a couple of days for a conference and just having a good week.
You were bouncing around all the time. I saw you at MM4. I mean, it's just, and I guess to everyone, the first bit of advice on the Yonah Weiss podcast is get out there, network, and just meet people. You want to meet people face to face. You want to shake their hands and see if they're the real deal.
100%. Yeah, I'm so glad I finally was able to come to. I'd intended to come to the MM2 and then 3, and so 4. I'm glad I made it, and I'm actually plans to be there this November also for the MM5. Yes. So looking forward to that.
Awesome.
And so if you guys don't know what MM 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is, it's a multifamily mastery. It is a conference that Jake and Gino started a few years ago. A little background, if you guys don't know who Gino is of Jake and Gino, they are the founders of not only the Rand multifamily investment company that has, a couple thousand units that they have purchased and under management over the past several years, but they're also the founders of the Jake and Gino educational program, which includes not only the coaching, but this incredible conference and event and the famous Wheelbarrow Profits podcast, which is one of the most successful multifamily podcasts out there. So, Gino, did I miss anything there? I'm sure I did, but why don't you fill us in a little bit of background? I've heard your story on multiple podcasts, but maybe our listeners haven't. So give us a little background.
I would say maybe 3 other pieces that you missed. I'm married to an amazing woman.
Okay.
I've got 6 kids. We homeschool, and I was in the restaurant business for over 20 years. So for everybody out there who says, oh, I can't get into real estate, can't get into multifamily, it's pie in the sky. I was a former pizza guy. Let me put this into context for you. It takes you a few years. We just did a refi the other day. I refied out $150,000, my portion. And as I'm sitting there reflecting on it, 10 years ago, I would make that in an entire year at my restaurant. That would be my salary, my take-home profits. And thinking about how many pizzas I had to make to generate $150,000 in profit. And yet I got that on one refinance of one property. And 1 month is mind-boggling what you can do. We always overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can do in 5 or 10. I think that's one of the biggest pieces of advice that I heard from, I think Tony Robbins said it. Yeah. And I was listening to him a few days ago, and I'm like, he's so true. When you start out, you're overwhelmed. You're drinking from the fire hose. You're saying, I can't see this. I want to be able to get 100 units by the end of the year. Well, it may take you 2 or 3 years, but then once you do that, you have the momentum, and within 5 years, you're off to the races. So it's really creating that clear vision. And why are you getting into multifamily or any other, I guess, investing asset class? It's really important.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously this is something that you give over to your students. You've had very successful students. I know many of them personally. I work with a lot of them, and coming through your program, obviously they're given those foundations of mindset is really, I would say, like Tony Robbins talks about a lot, then obviously you do. And we've heard from speakers at your conference a lot about mindset and figuring out setting yourself up for success.
Mm-hmm. And that's important. I think the first thing you really need to think about is why multifamily for you, and what are your investing goals? We talk about buy right, manage right, and finance right. And I think one of the biggest things that students have when they come on is they just want deals. I want deals. Well, let's pull it back. What markets do you want to invest in? How much time do you have to commit to this? Right. How serious are you about this? Do you want to just LP in deals and work passively, or do you want to get into this business full-time actively? How long do you want to be able to do this? I mean, I think within 3 to 5 years, everybody can be doing this if they start committing today. And don't have that fallacy of the market's too hot, when it's too late to get in. I got in 2011 when the economy was total crap and GDP was 1% and there was no growth. Rents were at $300. There was no money to raise. Everyone was making excuses. The world was ending. I got in luckily, and I was so desperate, and it was the right time for me. For those of you getting it in now, multifamily is a team sport, and maybe you don't go out and buy deals right now, but you can create your credibility book. You can start raising money from investors. You can start going to conferences, start educating yourself, start learning these, I guess, essential skills that you need, whether it's the 3 pillars of real estate that we talk about, the buy right, manage right, finance right. There's so many things you can be doing right now, and buying deals, if that's hard right now, listen, there's so many other things you can do. But for me, it does come down to mindset and why. I had a strong enough why. I just then with this, Yonah, I had my 6 kids. I would come home from the restaurant. I was tired. I was burned out. I was exhausted. I did not want my children to equate hard work and that feeling and seeing that dad was dejected. I wanted to be a role model for them. I wanted them to show that to have passion for what you do in work is really inspiring. And we're stewards of our money and we're stewards of our children. So I wanted to be that role model for them, which is pretty, thinking back on it subconsciously. I'm like, I don't like what I'm doing anymore. Let me find something that I want to excel at. And then I can create those, what people call generational wealth, but also those legacy skills that we can teach our kids about business and about money. And that's what multifamily has allowed me to do over the past, dozen years or so.
That's incredible. I mean, I have 6 kids as well. And I know a lot of our listeners are parents. I'd love you to talk a little bit about like, how have you gotten them involved? And I'm saying this with a little preface that, I remember seeing your daughter involved there at the conference, like working and, work in the room. And that's something that's incredible to me that you're able to give over to them. I mean, how has the transition over the past decade allowed you to teach them more and allow them to get more involved in the investing game?
One of the benefits of owning the restaurant, my children worked there, whether they were bussing tables, they were sitting people, they were hosts and hostesses. So that translated over. I always wanted them to be in my life in the business. Now, my oldest daughter, she just graduated college last year. She's a missionary. I don't think she wants to go into the business world, but I at least gave her the tools to equip her on how to deal with money, what money's about, how to, use a credit card, how to go out and save and spend. That's her path right now. I am not going, and this is for all the parents out there. You just want your children to become self-sufficient, to love what they do, and to find something that's going to give them the passion. For me, I wish she'd get married, have a lot of kids like Yonah and Gino. That's maybe in the cards, that may not be in the cards. I'm praying for that to happen. But, really support your children and don't choose their path. Help them and let them choose their path. My son is a sophomore in college, and he's going to Flagler private college, and he's learning T12s, financial accounting, money and banking. And it seems as if he's very interested in the business. He's actually invested in a few of our deals. That's how you get kids to invest and learn about money. My third daughter loves Zillow. She's always banging away at Zillow, looking at homes and stuff like that. We like going to open houses together, and even having them at these Jake and Gino events, being surrounded by amazing, like-minded families who are talking about entrepreneurship, who are talking about investing, having them listen to mom and dad on podcasts, having them help us write these children's books, being fully immersed in the business, because there is no balance in life. I'm sorry. It's very difficult to have a family life balance when you have 6 kids and you homeschool. It just really is difficult. So those moments that we can spend around the dinner table, or those moments that we can spend at a live event, it's funny because the children the other day said to me, Dad, when's the last time we went on vacation and it wasn't a Jake and Gino event? And I felt a little embarrassed. I'm like, you're right. Because, with COVID, we still had these events, but there was really nowhere really to go. So we're going to Hawaii this year in July. We're speaking at one of my students' events, but it's a Jake and Gino event for business, but we got a week in Hawaii. But it's really amazing because it's become part of our family. And I love that because I want them not to be afraid about money. I want them to take control of their money. And the most important thing we can teach our children is that instant gratification, that, the long term, it's okay not to buy something today, to save money for tomorrow. And, money is important, but it's not everything. But be able to control it is, I think, one of the most important things to teach our children.
100%. That's awesome. I love hearing that. I love hearing these stories and hearing how they're involved in the business and involved in their own ways, because everyone has a different personality. And, obviously every kid is different no matter what, but seeing them find something that they like is awesome, especially when it can help each other. I mean, because if they're involved any way whatsoever in the business, guaranteed they're going to have involvement with one another as well. And that kind of brings the family closer. So that's awesome. And the homeschooling is something, quite impressive as well. Obviously there's a lot that goes into that. You need a lot of resources and patience to be around your kids all day. And
I love that you say that. We started homeschooling when it wasn't cool. So that was over 20 years ago, my daughter. And to everybody out there, I'm going to shatter this limiting belief. Every single person listening to this podcast has the ability to homeschool their kids. If your behaviors are belief driven. If you think you can't do it, then you can't. But we teach our children everything. And it's from walking, talking, going to the bathroom. I mean, starting to read, doing their numbers. And for me, the thing I love the most about it is my children, my siblings have such an amazing relationship amongst themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love more than anything else. My 23-year-old hangs out with my 7-year-old, and my 15-year-old will actually go up and speak to adults. You see them at the events, how they interact with adults. And for me, it's built a great family culture for myself, because like I said, when we're really busy, we're able to spend time throughout the day. But like you said, Yonah, it's not sexy. It can be very challenging. But I challenge everybody out there. What have you done in life that has really been worth it, that has been really amazing, that you haven't had to struggle? Listen, you're away this weekend from the family. This business means a lot to you, but you sacrifice.
Right.
So I think everyone who's done great in life makes that commitment. But once you make a commitment to something, there are sacrifices. There are things you can't do. I'm not going out on the weekends drinking with my friends. I'm not playing golf on Sunday. I'm giving those things up because we have other commitments that we've committed to. And I want to have an amazing family. I don't want to have my children grow up, leave the house and say, dad wasn't there, or, I don't want to follow his lead. My daughter, when she left me a note. And this is one of the proudest moments as a father. She basically told me, I love you. You are the first man that I ever fell in love with. And I hope that I marry someone like you. Wow. And as a parent, I mean, what more can you ask for? I mean, as far as we're always focusing on business and trying to make money, but you need to be there for your kids, and you need to show that you need to spend quality time with them. And you need to listen to them, because they pick up on everything. Yeah. And if you're not there for them, they're not going to go to you. They're going to go to somebody else. So for all the parents out there, just take some time off and spend time with your kids and spend some quality time, and don't do things that you want to do. Do things that they want to do. And that's the hardest thing. Do I want to play some of the games they want to play? Do I want to watch some of those shows that they want to watch? Not really, but it's their time. It's not your time.
100%. You mentioned in passing that that the kids helped you write a children's book or books, maybe. What is that about? I know you guys had the Wheelbarrow Prophets book. That was extremely good. I got a lot of resources out of that personally. But tell me a little bit about these children's books.
So my wife had the idea of creating these books for children's, where we've called it the Cannoli series. And what it is, there's cartoon characters: Responsible Rhino, Creative Caterpillar, and Pity Party Pig. And, we wanted to present them because most of the students in the community are family oriented, and it's very hard to start a conversation for 6 to 12-year-olds. So in the story, real quick, the bakery explodes. Pity Party Pig has a pity party about it. He goes out and buys lottery tickets. He buys his big screen TV. The Responsible Rhino, what does he do? He goes out, he starts educating himself, he gets a job, and then he starts building the business back. And Creative Caterpillar is out there trying to start another business, whether he's making gelato, whatever it may be. And we have these 3 different paths in life that we can choose. And we're all 3 characters throughout our lives. And just to teach our kids that we can be responsible. We can have a pity party. When my daughter leaves to go away for the year, I feel like a pity party. I miss her. But at the same time, I can come back and be a responsible Rhino in other aspects of my life. So just having children understand that. And in the second book, we just launched it this week. We became a number one bestseller on Amazon. Thank you. And this one is about a gelato blast where the gelato melts, and all of a sudden that's a problem. But what happens? We have opportunities that come out of those problems, and Responsible Rhino says, hey, real estate's going to be on sale because all of a sudden there's a big flood in the neighborhood. Let's go out and buy something else. And Pity Party, what I love about it, there's growth in Pity Party. All of a sudden he decides, you know what, I'm going to go get a job at Responsible Rhino. I'm going to start putting in the work. And you see his transformation. He was hanging out with Downer Donkey. He says, you know what? I don't want to be a downer. I want to go out and hang out with Encouraging Elephant, right? And you see the story of people who you surround yourself with. And ultimately, there's mentor moves in this book. Being mentored, and we really believe 100% in mentorship and education. That's why the Jake and Gino community. Right. And it's important to teach our children that we should have mentors in life, and who we surround ourselves, what friends we surround ourselves with, what messages we bring in. It's really, really important. And I did this more for the Jake and Gino community, for those parents who want to sit down, enjoy these colorful things and just read, have coloring pages, and interact with their children. And it's just a great way to start the conversation about money and about personal development, more or less, starting for a 7 to 10-year-old child.
I love that. What's the name there? We can drop a link in the show notes for if people want to check that out.
The cannolis exploded. Now what? It's written by my wife, Julia Barbaro. So you can go on Amazon and just check it out.
Awesome. The cannoli exploded. That's awesome. Sounds interesting. I'll definitely check that out. I love the fact that there are children's book that speak about these principles that, we in our communities and obviously in the masterminds and everything, we're all talking about it, but how do you relate that to your kids? I often find, challenges in trying to relate and giving good parables and things like that to them, but it's always great to have more resources to that. So that's awesome.
Love that. And I think the other thing is when the adults read it, there's so many subliminal messages in there, and you can start talking about it amongst yourselves about when were you not a responsible rhino, or you're going through a problem right now. Well, what's the opportunity in the problem? I mean, that's the big breakthrough that I've had over the last 15 years or so. Earlier on in my life, a problem arose. I focused on the problem. Nowadays, as an entrepreneur, if you're focusing just on the problem, where are the solutions? We need to be solutions oriented and take the problem. It's happened before. And then all of a sudden, the problem's there. What are the opportunities? And I always try to tell my kids, and I learned this about a year ago, and it made so much sense to me. If you have a problem and there's money that you have, the money solves the problem, you really don't have a problem. We really need to dwell on the problems that we that are much more unsurmountable. That's why we make money, to be able to take care of those problems and to be able to have impact in life. That's why we become financially free, not just because for ourselves, but ultimately we become happy in life because we can create impact for others. The students have closed over 40,000 units in Jake and Gino. I've got at least 50 students who have quit their W-2 jobs. I would not have been able to do that if I was flipping pizzas. Honestly, I would not have been able to do that if I wasn't financially free. That's my path, but I'm here to tell everybody the Lambos, they come and go. The 6 houses, they come and go. What you'll be remembered for, and this is what's starting with the end in mind, is how much impact you created and who you helped. Getting a text from a student today saying, hey, thanks for that email. That really boosted my morale today. That made my day, that I was able to impact him for the day. These are things that we need to focus on. This is why we're making money. This is why we're entrepreneurs. We're solving problems, but we're also able to give of ourselves because we can choose opportunities over money. And then those opportunities come. And then ironically enough, the money follows.
100%. I mean, it's so incredible. Obviously, a lot of people get into business or get into real estate for the money. And I think a lot of those people who do that are misguided and maybe don't understand the power of it. But when you have a transition and you understand you have a bigger why, it's something that you're reaching for, you're striving for, and you're growth oriented, those whys and those, meaning things that you want to do are going to change over time, right? The more successful you get in the, financial sense of the word, like you said, you're solving those quote unquote problems of that a lot of people have, that money can buy those problems, but you got to focus on what's really important in life. And it gives you the financial freedom, oftentimes gives you the clarity of mind. And I just more just the free time to be able to focus on growing and focus on becoming a better person.
Yonah, do you mind if I share a quote from Stephen Covey real quick?
Of course.
For everybody.
Yeah.
In his book, he says, people see the world as they are, not as it is. Mm-hmm. And when you're transitioning in life, look back on the inflection points. You're seeing the world as it is. When I had my scarcity mindset, you're talking about abundance and growth mindset. I was worried about my pie. I was not worried about partnering with others. I was worried about all the money for me. When I met Jake, all of a sudden, the little scarcity went away in the abundance. I wouldn't be able to own over 1,500 units with just 2 partners. With no syndications involved, multiple different businesses, creating an education company, launching 6 books, having 4 podcasts. That doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. My paradigm or the map of my life continued to expand. And for everybody out there who's setting goals, the object of the goal is not to hit the goal. It's to become the person you need to become to hit that goal, because everyone listening to this podcast is a high performer. They want to achieve. So once you achieve that goal, what happens? You have to start and select another goal. Watch and see the person you become as you hit that goal. It's so invigorating. The gap in the gain. Look at where you were. That gain that you had before to where you are today, to where you're going to be a year from now. That's where you get really excited. And that to me is what success is all about. That growth, that journey. Great, hit 1,000 units. Once you hit 1,000, you're going to want 2,000. You're never going to feel successful. Look at the growth that you've accomplished and that you've achieved, and then continue on to the next goal. But always think that I need to become a better person and I guess a more well-rounded person. You need to grow into that next iteration of yourself.
I love that. I mean, you're obviously a coach, right? You obviously spend a lot of time with your students, with the community, giving over, and we can tell the passion that you have about this. How has it helped you in terms of your personal growth? I know for me, like being a teacher that I was for many years, really helped me become a better person just through teaching, something that I love, I'm passionate about still to this day. But I'd love to hear from you if you see that the coaching itself and the community has even helped you grow beyond what you even imagined.
Well, the community has allowed me to become a better investor. I've learned. I didn't know buy right, manage right, finance right. We have a book called Creative Cash. I didn't know what the three pillars of real estate were. I mean, I knew them, but packaging them together, I didn't know about the trends of the market. But now, since you're an educator or you're a quote unquote thought leader, although I think that's such a stupid statement because really thought leaders, but we need to educate ourselves. We need to know what's going on and we need to understand and translate that to our students. And you as an educator know that your students will probably teach you more than you will teach them. And you want to live in that excitable moment in life where retirement is great. Once I became financially free, retirement is great. I came down to Florida. I stayed on the beach for 3 days and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. Retirement is all of a sudden, I want to start impacting others. Tony Robbins, once again, he talks about the 6 human needs. It's growth and contribution. That's number 5 and number 6. Most of us can have the 4 basic needs, which is, certainty, uncertainty, significance, and connection. We can figure that out during doing various things. But when you really start leading a fulfilling life, once you start contributing and you start growing, and contribution is through teaching, is seeing other people do what you do and helping them achieve it. And then all of a sudden, that person goes out and helps somebody else. And to me, that's what teaching has allowed me to do. I love it. And like I said, I want to have that growth mindset. I want to have that abundance mindset, not where I accumulate all this money and let it sit there. And then I'm afraid to touch that money. That's scarcity. Abundance is, let me share with you what I've learned. And then obviously, hey, you know what? You've got a deal. Let's partner in a deal. Or obviously, I was raising money from the community years ago. Don't do that now, but I could do that as well. But just learning from people and getting on podcasts and being able to network and to quote unquote mastermind this hour with you, it's been invaluable to me for the last 4 or 5 years. When am I ever going to get on a call with Robert Kiyosaki or T. Harv Eker or Stephen Pressfield? The names go on and on for an hour to be able to spend with them if it wasn't for this education platform. And as I said, I've learned so much more from these people than they've learned from me. And it's been that for me, it's been gratifying.
Absolutely. And where do you see yourself going forward? I mean, is this obviously in a sense, you've just begun because, 40,000 units students, I mean, that can grow exponentially and you're only at MM4, got to get to MM 25, like where does, and where do you see yourself in the next several years?
That is a great question. I right now, it's funny. I don't really set goals anymore other than for the education. My goal is to have the students close 50,000 units by the end of this year, which should be achievable. The only other goal that I would say, we've written a vision statement, a vision board. I'd love to become ultimately the white glove service of multifamily. That's what I want to become. I want to become a one-stop shop. Students come in, they've got coaching, they've got the on-site boot camps, they've got the Monday lessons with Jake and myself, they've got the education. I'd love to continue to create that content for them and make them feel as if they need a community. All throughout COVID, I forgot to mention this, it pulled me through. Jake and Gino, the community, pulled me through going to these events every 2 or 3 months. Being locked in with the students was really beneficial to me. It was almost selfish of me at the same time, but I think the students needed it just as much as I did. As far as unit counts, Yonah, we're vertically integrated. So we're looking to do between 500 and 1,000 units a year. We've got about 65 to 70 employees on the property management side. So we want to scale efficiently and effectively. Mm-hmm. We've closed in the last 60 days, 5 or 6 deals. Smaller deals, 40 units, 25 units. They're all amazing. They're all awesome deals. We're going to refi all of them within the next year to 18 months. But that's where our focus is. Our focus is on buying great deals. No deal is better than a bad deal. I've learned that. I'm not going to push the button on deals. Looking at these deals for the long term, and for anybody out there who is a multifamily investor, I would say to you, exit strategy is very important. Figure out what your exit strategy is on these deals. Mm-hmm. For us, buying in these markets that I'm comfortable with for the next 10 years, I'm comfortable with owning this asset for the next decade, because if things do turn down, I'm able to collect rents. I have long-term fixed rate financing on these things. I can weather the storm. And, rich people sell, wealthy people own. I've learned that over the last couple of years because I've seen my own journey. Our first deal in 2013, we owned our first asset. Rents were $350 for a 1 bedroom. Today, they're $9.95 plus rubs. So
Wow.
rents have tripled. Debt, we've refinanced it a couple of times, but think about the wealth that we've created, the power from a simple
Wow.
25 unit asset and owning it for years and years and years. Be clear on your goals. There's nothing wrong with buying a few deals, repositioning them, flipping them out. But ultimately, the wealth is created by owning your own core set of assets where you are a few people, or even syndications where you can own them long term and continue to create wealth. Those families that have been super wealthy in this country have owned assets. They're not out there selling everything. They're owning. Now, at certain times, you have certain assets that you want to trade up. Obviously, that makes sense. But ultimately, you want to get to a point where you own some of these assets and you're continuing to use cost segregation. You're continuing to get cash flow. You're continuing to pay down the principal on these deals. That's what ultimately creates wealth. It's called long-termism. It's a hard thing to master, but I will promise you, surround yourself with people with that mindset and you will see how successful they've been. And it doesn't take 30 or 40 years. All it takes is several years for you to start adopting it and start buying the right assets.
Awesome. I love that you have that, what you've called the white glove service and give this over to your students. And as I said, I know many, many students who've gone through your program, part of your community, who are just that. I mean, extremely successful and are great people. That's what I love the most. I mean, I loved going to your events, just walking around the room, just seeing so many like-minded people, so many people that are just in there to help each other. That was ultimately why I love the multifamily community so much out there. Just so many people are focused on helping each other. Something relates to me a lot. But last question for you before we get to the final four is, obviously you guys are, wheelbarrow profits, multifamily mastery. Have you invested or are looking at investing in any other type of asset classes?
The only thing that I invest in other than businesses, I love whole life. Whole life insurance to me is great. It's a great tool. I'm doing estate planning right now. I'm trying to figure out that long-termism, that piece, because I want to create legacy wealth for the kids, but I'm not going to hand over my entire wealth to them. I want to do it intelligently, and I want them to hand it over to their grandkids. I don't want to be the Vanderbilts. I'd like to be the Rockefellers, where it sustains, and it's not only the wealth generated, it's the skills that they can go out and do the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's the mindset. I think that's ultimately what I want to focus on with long-termism. And I want this to permeate through my community, through the Jake and Gino community. And, big shout out to Josh and to Dylan and to Scott and our whole team that spends time with students before onboarding them on the front end. We want to make sure that it's a great fit for them as well as it is for us. Right. One apple can spoil the well, and you know how that goes. We want to make sure that we can help people out there, and they're ready and they're committed, because it's a process. But I'll guarantee you, if you're locked in, you're ready to work for the next 2 to 3 years, it can be life-changing for people.
Awesome. Well, with that, let's transition to what we like to call the final four. These are 4 questions I ask all my guests. And the first question to you, Gino, what is the worst job that you ever had?
So it was the worst and the best. 8 years old, I'm washing dishes for my dad's restaurant. It was looking back at it, dirty, sloppy. It was people's food, but I couldn't wait to do it as an 8-year-old. And that gave me the impetus to work hard, because we need to work hard in life. Everyone's talking about working smart. We all need to work smart, but there's times in life when we just need to buckle down. As an 8-year-old sitting there, scraping food into the garbage, washing silverware, putting it through the machine. Looking back, that was a pretty gross thing to do, but what an amazing thing for me and my dad.
That's awesome. And you clearly picked up those skills and translated it into your life, mm-hmm. and given it over to your kids the same. So what's a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
I read about at least a book a week now because I have so many podcasts, but the one that really stands out over the last couple of years, it's Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits. And the reason why those 7 habits, they didn't resonate with me 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I was reading the book. I'm like, what is he talking about? But go back, everybody, and start with the end in mind. Yonah was talking about, what do I see 5, 10 years? I see myself at my funeral with my 6 kids, with my 20-something grandkids. I see them singing opera. I see everyone being happy. And I see the Jake and Gino community members going, he made an impact on my life. He was there. He helped me out. He was a great role model. And that legacy of having to pay for my grandkids' college and have not to worry about, that's what I want. That paradigm shift. People see see life as they are, not as it is. Sharpening the saw. There's synergies in life. There's so many stories and so many habits in that book that if we read that and we really take it to heart, I mean, Stephen Covey was an amazing author, great book out there. Anyone who's stuck, read the book and really take it to heart. It's a lot of work to start with the end in mind, thinking about your imminent death or when you're going to pass away. Hopefully it's long into the future, but how do you know what you want to achieve? How do you know what your values are? if you don't really think about what you want your legacy to be. There's a lot of work involved in it, but go out there and buy that book and really work on that. Work on what you want your life to look like.
100%. And a couple of lessons there. Number one, a book to have an impact on you, you have to be ready for it, right? You have to, like you said, you read it 10, 15, it didn't really make sense. First time I read that book many years, maybe 7, 8 years ago, that made a huge impact on me. But I just picked it up again recently, and it's seeing it in an entirely different light. And to me, it's just opening up new ideas and new ways of thinking, even though I've applied so many of those concepts over the years to help my business, to help, my life in general. Now it's really, taking on a different effect. So I love that. And go back and reread books that you read, yes. You never know. And the third question for you, what's a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
I'm in the process of learning opera. I'm singing. About 8 months ago, my kids started singing a little over a year ago, and I was missing out. Remember, part of the family aspect, I didn't have time for singing. Now I've got a lesson every Friday. I go to choir Wednesday, and we sing at Mass on Sunday. So for me, it's a difficult skill. And fortunately, I've got a great voice. I've got a great coach, but it's one of those things where you need sacrifice and commitment. And it's a lot of fun. And it's something we do together with the family. So I would say opera singing.
That's cool. That's awesome. Fourth and final question. What does success mean to you?
I think I've referenced this a couple of times in the podcast, but really, it's, an achievement is something where, hey, you've closed a deal. I think success is more like a feeling. And I think we all want to feel successful. So when you chunk down your values, what are your values? And what makes you feel successful? The fact that I can work from home now, my kids are right here. I'm doing tasks with them and chores with them, and I'm hanging out with them, jumping on the golf cart, going to the beach with them. That to me is a successful life, being able to engineer a successful life like that. So everybody out there, see what your values are, see what you want your life to be. And then from there, are you leading and you're living your life with your values? Are you making decisions based on values, that values-based decision-making? And if you are, you'll feel that congruency. And then if you are, and I challenge you, you'll have that feeling in your gut. Should I be doing this deal? Should I get into this venture? Should I be doing this partnership? Should I be using this vendor? Whatever that is, you'll know if it's going against your values. And if you are going with your values, you'll feel more successful in life. I hope that makes sense.
It makes 100% sense. That's the key to everything. Just focus on the values. That's success. I love that. Love the definition. I love that we get different definitions every single episode, but so many of them have so much truth to them. So I appreciate that. And finally, Gino, where can our listeners find you or reach out to you?
Just go to jakeandgino.com. I mean, if they want to email me, gino@jakeandgino.com, I've got a PDF copy. I'll send them a PDF copy of Wheel Our Profits. We wrote it several years ago. The principles are timeless. You need to buy an asset, you need to manage it properly, and you need to finance it properly. Different parts of the cycle, different buying, but that's the framework right there. And if you're really serious about getting into multifamily, it should be one of your first books you read. There's so many educators, so many amazing books out there, but this really focuses on multifamily, what's allowed us to scale our portfolio. And like I said, between our students and ourselves, there's over $2 billion of assets that we've been able to create in multifamily through the framework.
That's awesome. Love that. Thank you so much, Gino. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you taking the time out today and spending it with us. It's been a lot of fun.
I had a lot of fun too. A lot of great questions, a lot of thought-provoking questions for everybody out there. Remember, values. When you shut this recording off, think about, are you starting with the end in mind? And are you thinking about working towards your values?
Awesome. Thank you so much. And to our listeners, remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a connection request, Yonah Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.